Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, as always, on Mondays and Thursdays, Casey Foreman. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. Thank you, as always, for the continued support. If you like today's episode, please leave us a comment or review on whatever platform you are listening on. And this podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. All right, guys, welcome to today's show. Like I said, great to have you in. A whole lot has gone down in the past week in the world of sports. We got the NFL, we got the NBA, two of my favorite leagues. I'm trying to soak it up as long as I can, having these two leagues going on at the same time, and I'm trying to milk that as long as I can, hoping to get as many more playoff games, NBA playoff games, as I can get. Give me some more Game 7s, okay? Give me some more of what I have seen. And then as far as the NFL, it's been fantastic to watch football again. And like I said before, it's great to have the NBA and the NFL at the same time. Two of my favorite leagues. But again, so much has gone on, and let's discuss it today on a Thursday. We got Baker and Joe Burrow facing off tonight, and we have the Eastern Conference Final Game 2 for my people, basketball people. Eastern Conference Final Game 2 tonight, Miami and Boston. Looking forward to that. But I want to start with the breaking news, arguably, and the biggest news right now, and that is that the Los Angeles Clippers have been sent home. Okay, they are home. They have left the Orlando bubble after blowing a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets. Okay, Clippers go up 3-1, lose 3 straight. And they are sent packing by Denver. I want to discuss that first. After that, let's dive into the Western Conference Final. Haven't had a chance to discuss that quite yet because we've been waiting on who would be playing the Los Angeles Lakers. But we finally know those Nuggets will be facing off against the Lakers. I think back in 2009 was the last time the Nuggets and Lakers played each other in the postseason. I think the Lakers have won every matchup against the Nuggets in the playoffs so far. We'll see if that can change. Denver has proven they are capable of doing the impossible. But yeah, after the Clippers, I want to discuss that Western Conference Final between the Lakers and the Nuggets. And then I want to discuss the All-NBA teams, first, second, and third. All 3 teams were announced. I want to discuss that, break them down, give you guys my opinions and my reaction to those teams being announced. And then at the end of the show, I just want to discuss the Orlando bubble as a whole, how crazy it really has been so far. Like I said, it has been so crazy. Give you guys a recap of the Orlando bubble so far, everything that has gone down. We have seen a lot, just in case you guys have forgotten anything. But like I said, let's start out with those Los Angeles Clippers. We've got a packed show for you guys today. But the Clippers are going home, and man, do I have a lot to say about this. This is something I have been... I have hair in my hair. Not something I've been waiting for, but something... I have somewhat been expecting. I didn't think it would come this soon for the Clippers. A little sooner than I expected, but the Clippers have finally had their day. They go home. They have been sent home from the postseason. Denver comes back from 3-1. All odds are against them. All odds are against them. But Denver does the impossible. Denver comes back from a 3-1 lead. They're down 3-1. They come back down 3-1 twice. Not once, but twice. They come back from 3-1. Once against the Utah Jazz, then against the NBA prohibited favorites in the Los Angeles Clippers. So yes, we saw Denver do, like I said, the impossible, coming back from 3-1 twice now. Props to the Denver Nuggets. Like I said, you did the impossible. Props to Mike Malone. The game plan, you out coached Doc Rivers, who always is talked about as one of the top coaches in the league. He got out coached by Mike Malone, arguably by Rick Carlisle in round one as well. So props to the Nuggets, Jokic, Murray, Michael Porter, everyone on that roster. They did the impossible. They stepped up when no one thought they could. Again, props to the Denver Nuggets. Not always do we give the team that made the upset enough credit. We usually just talk, all about the team that got upset. So again, one more time, Denver Nuggets, congratulations for that upset. No one saw it coming except for Nick Wright. Nick Wright saw it coming. Props to Nick Wright as well on First Things First from Fox for calling that as well. But now that we did that, let's discuss that team that got upset. Let's discuss the Los Angeles Clippers. And I want to start way at the beginning. I don't want to start, from what just happened. I want to go way back 1 year ago, basically, and discuss again what happened from the beginning up until now for this Clipper team, the story of this Clipper team. So last year, 2019 postseason first round of the playoffs for the Warriors, they face off against the Los Angeles Clippers without Kawhi and Paul George. It was just those, I can do it Clippers, beating the odds. No one expected them to make the playoffs over the Lakers, especially. They do the somewhat impossible, it seems like, and make the postseason last year. And then they face off against the Warriors, and they ultimately end up pushing the Warriors to 6 games. They win 2 games against the healthy Golden State Warriors with a healthy Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. Yes, they won 2 games, pushed that team to 7 games. So, yes, we know what that Clipper team was when Kawhi and Paul George joined it, and that's why we thought it would be such a deadly pairing together. They take the Warriors 6 games. Then the free agency comes around. We're waiting. What is Kawhi Leonard going to do? We're all waiting. He then bails on Toronto, says, sorry Lakers, you guys were waiting for me. Well, all these other players got signed. I'm going to the Clippers, a team I wanted to go to all along, and then I convinced the Clippers to trade for my friend Paul George, but it wasn't easy, right? It was not easy. The Clippers had to trade 5 first-round picks, Danilo Gallinari and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So they trade 5 first-round picks, so 5 players, at least 5 players there, and then Gallinari and Gilgeous-Alexander. So those are 7 players. 7 players traded for one in Paul George. 7 players for one in Paul George, and ever since then, we've been talking about it. Wow, we are going to see the Battle of Los Angeles. Anthony Davis and LeBron, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in for the Clippers against AD and LeBron for the Lakers. We're going to see the Battle of LA again and again. That is the matchup we're all going to see this year. And those are the 2 teams we're looking to win it all. And then we're looking at the Clippers, though, how deep they are. They take the Warriors 6 games and then add 2 stars, if not superstars, before this, superstars, to their team. And all looks great before this season starts. They even say we're going to be, quote, load managing. I don't think they said that exactly, but we're going to be sitting throughout this season, resting Kawhi, who has been having consistent injuries. Paul George is rehabbing. So they said right from the get-go they will be doing the load managing, taking it game by game, not necessarily taking the regular season as serious as a Los Angeles Lakers team was or did. So we knew they would be load managing all throughout the season, and they did exactly that. They beat the Lakers on opening night without a Paul George, just Kawhi Leonard and that group of guys that he had, that deep defensive dog team that we thought they had all along. We saw it in Game 1. They upset LeBron and the Lakers with Anthony Davis in the first game of the season. And Kawhi's big commercial airs, right? He's the new king of LA, Kawhi Town. He's got the crown on the keychain. He moves, the league follows, blah blah blah, all that, right? So Kawhi Leonard's big commercial drops, in the middle of this game. He's the king of LA, Kawhi Town. He's saying, he runs this town, even though, arguably the best player in the world, LeBron James, maybe ever, is in Los Angeles as well. And then you have a guy like that saying this. So big statements by Kawhi and the Clippers from the get-go. This is a team that obviously had championship thoughts and championship hopes right from the get-go. As soon as Kawhi Leonard signed, as soon as Paul George was traded, and they have those two guys with Lou Will, Montrez, and Doc Rivers as a coach, they knew they were playing for a championship. They were playing to beat the Lakers and to make it to play in June, when we thought the finals would be in June eventually, or back then. And then we see them go and beat other top teams in the league. After beating LA in game one, they beat the Lakers, they beat the Celtics, they beat the Heat, they beat the Rockets, etc. They play well, they beat other top contending teams. But then after beating, the Lakers, also favorited, the Celtics, the Heat, they go and fall and lose to teams nowhere near, in contention, like Memphis, like the Phoenix Suns, like the Chicago Bulls, Sacramento Kings. They lose to all four of those teams that season, despite being favorites. So that kind of shows you they didn't necessarily take that regular season seriously. They simply played and showed up when they felt like it. They got out of bed when they felt like it. The Bulls, the Kings, the Suns, Memphis didn't get them out of bed. They picked and choose. They played against the Lakers, the Celtics, again the Heat. They picked and choose the Raptors. They picked and choose their battles. But again, they did not come to play consistently throughout that regular season. They made some late season changes as well, late season moves. They acquired Marcus Morris. They acquire Reggie Jackson because they do have injuries to Patrick Beverley. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard have been in and out of the lineup, obviously, for a while, throughout the season. So it is smart to add depth. They go and add Marcus Morris, who at the time is averaging a career high near 20 points with the New York Knicks. He trades, goes down to 10 points, but they trade for a 20-point guy at the time in Morris, and then I don't want to say a starting point guard, but definitely a consistent point guard, a point guard that has been in the league consistently, I should say, a former franchise point guard in Reggie Jackson. So they get those two guys because of injuries. But then, we hear the same thing all throughout the year. They didn't play together all year. They weren't healthy all year. We've only had so many games together all year, but at a certain time, they were 9, 10, 11-0 when they had their starting lineup. Then they lose, but they ended up going like 13, 14-2 with that full starting lineup. So even at full strength, they're like, yeah, we look good at full strength despite not being together all season. That's what we look like when we are at full strength. So they showed us glimpses of greatness, or not, a very good, of being a very good team. With some of those wins, again, when they showed up to play, with those wins against the Lakers, they did look superior in those first two matchups. So yes, this was a team we were all expecting to definitely make it to the Western Conference Final, if not the final, and win it all this year. At least make it to their first Western Conference Final. We were all expecting that. But again, they get Morris and Jackson because of the injuries and not necessarily playing too much throughout the season together. They add depth, but then we hear again they haven't played together with this full healthy lineup. What's that team chemistry going to be like despite not losing at full strength at one point in time? They still end up winning 49 games, a game away from 50 wins. When you only have 15 games at full strength, that they kept saying over and over and over. We haven't been healthy. Not been at full strength. They were in the postseason, but not going to talk about that right now. I'll get to that in a second. But they end up winning 49 games, 49, one away from 50. They're rated the number 2 offense in the league, led by Kawhi Leonard, 27 points. Number 5 defense in the league. So top 5 offense and defense. Kawhi led the team with 27, 7, and 5. Paul George didn't play all year, but still contributed with 21, 5, and 4. Lou Williams, 6th man of the year, 18 and 5 off the bench. Montrez, the 6th man of the year this year, 18 and 7. Off of the bench. So 2 guys averaging 18 and 5 plus off the bench, and then 2 stars in Kawhi and Paul George. Okay? That's what they had all season. Then they enter the postseason. Okay, they struggle a little bit throughout the bubble, but no one was worrying. People said they don't care about these bubble games. They're waiting for the postseason. Wait for the postseason to start. Game 1, they're going to turn it up. It's going to be quick. There's going to be sweeps. The Clippers are going to roll through teams. Blah, 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 blah. We heard all that. Then in the first playoff matchup in the first round with Dallas, they are pushed to 6 games. Dallas Mavericks without Kristaps Porzingis for a whole chunk of the series, for the majority of the series, without Kristaps Porzingis, pushes the healthy Clippers to 6 games. Okay, maybe they're missing Patrick Beverley for a couple of games, but for the most part, healthy Clippers says 6 games without Kristaps Porzingis. The Clippers and that number 5 rated defense has no answer for the 21-year-old Luka, cooking them, winning 2 games by himself, hitting that step back game winner, hitting another basically game winner. Hitting the game winner, over Reggie Jackson, but prior to that, he put them on his back to win a game prior. So he wins 2 games by himself, Luka Doncic practically does, and the Clippers go 6 games with the Dallas Mavericks, despite a lot of people like me having it be somewhat of a quick series in 5 because of how young Dallas was, and then because of the injuries, no one saw it going 6 games. Luka wills them to 6, gets 2 victories, but again, that is kind of where issues and red flags should start occurring if you were a Clipper fan, or if you were a Clipper fan. That is probably where some red flags started coming in, Man, they go 6 games with a Dallas Maverick team that is without their second best player. They cannot contain Luka up until he gets injured. And then they move on. Ultimately, they're talking their crap. Patrick Beverley is, and Paul George is to what Damian Lillard and stuff. They're talking all their crap. And then they go and play the Denver Nuggets, and the Clippers blow a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets. Clippers blow a 3-1 lead. Clippers blow a 3-1 lead. Yeah. Clippers blow a 3-1 lead. And yes, they were filled with excuses. They were filled with excuses. They were. But I'll talk about that in a second. First, let's go ahead and talk about, after they take that 3-1 lead, the Denver Nuggets, after they take that 3-1 lead, They did blow out the Denver Nuggets in Game 1. They lose to Denver in Game 2, then win 2 straight, take the 3-1 lead. And then, in Game 5 and Game 6, the Clippers go up by 16 points and blow a lead. In Game 5, go up by 16, blow that lead. In Game 6, go up by 19 points. No, wait, they blow that lead. They can't even front run. It seems like a team, a thing that is somewhat, not to say easy to do, but front running is something the elite teams should be good at, right? This championship caliber team can't even front run. Okay, they go up 16, and then they take Denver not seriously and blow a 16-point lead. Go up 19. Don't take them seriously, blow a 19-point lead. Then all chips are on the table. Game 7 comes around. Doc Rivers is like, no, we don't need an inspiring speech. What's a speech? These are men. They need to go out there and play better. Then in Game 7, all of the odds and the pressure is on that Clipper team. Everyone is looking at that Clipper team. You guys, how did you lose 2 games in a row after going up 3-1? You guys better win this game. You better win the game. All of the pressure for the first time in a while was on Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and that Clipper team to win. It was on them to win. In the past, the pressure wasn't necessarily on these guys. Now it's on them to win the biggest stage. You lost 2 in a row after going up 3-1. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, Kawhi Leonard? Top 3 player in the league. Some people are saying he's top 10 player all time, top 5 player all time. What are you going to do, Kawhi? Game 7. Anything can happen in Game 7. It's time for you to take it over and show everybody who you are. Game 7 comes around. Clippers choke. Again, similar to Game 5, Game 6, Clippers choke in Game 7. They lose 104-89 despite the game being close, going back and forth up until that fourth quarter. They simply choke in that fourth quarter. Kawhi and Paul George play terrible through the entire game. It wasn't just the fourth quarter, but that fourth quarter was disgusting, I should say, for those two players. Terrible. Neither of them make a shot. Kawhi nor Paul George. They go scoreless in that fourth quarter. Jokic, Jamal Murray, they play great, hungry, and determined, and that is why, ultimately, we see this team come back from 3-1 and win in Game 7. Kawhi's Game 7 stats for you. 14 points. The Claw, 14 points. 6 of 22, minus 21. Didn't make a shot in the fourth quarter. Okay. He's the next MJ, right? Okay. Closest thing to MJ. Okay. Paul George, playoff P. Only time I think I've seen him be playoff P was in that one Nike Gatorade commercial when he made that game winner. I don't think I've ever seen a big playoff P. I don't know. Maybe I don't know why he gave himself that nickname. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he didn't give himself that nickname. I don't know. But playoff P, right? Playoff P. 10 points in Game 7 for playoff P. 10 points, 4 of 16 for playoff P. Both 0 scoreless in the fourth quarter. Paul George goes, 2 of 11 from three-point line. Was it over 11 or 3? I believe it was 2 of 11. 2 of 11, we'll say. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt with 2 of 11. But they did exactly, or Paul George, playoff P, right? He did exactly what we saw from him in elimination games versus Utah and versus Portland 2 years prior. His first time in OKC, they blow it versus Utah. They lose versus Utah despite being the better team. And then the second time around, they lose to Portland despite being the better team. And it's the same thing in these elimination games. 10 points, 4 of 16, 2 of 11 from 3. Terrible in the fourth quarter. No shots going in for him in the fourth quarter. So it's the same thing that we have seen from playoff P, Paul George, in the past. Same thing for Paul George, but Kawhi really chokes. Not really something we've seen from him, but 14 points, 6 of 22. We heard excuses from Kawhi and Paul George after the game. We heard Kawhi and Paul say, there was a pandemic. We didn't play that much together. This bubble, we were in isolation. The Kobe passing away that hit everybody. So yes, all of that factors in. We heard those excuses from Kawhi and Paul George, and rightfully so, somewhat, right? Yes, the pandemic affected everybody. You didn't necessarily have all season to play together. Yes, Kobe's passing away definitely had an effect on you, those two LA teams, and every team in the NBA, and most people in the world. So yes, all of that definitely had a factor for you guys. Sure. Doc Rivers eventually said, you can put the blame on him. He's the leader of the team. You can put the blame on me if you're going to blame anybody, he said. And yes, that may all be true. That all may be true what Kawhi and Paul George said. All those excuses they said. Yes, that is all true. Okay, and it definitely did not help their situation. Okay, but that is not why you lost. That is not why the Clippers lost. Okay, Clippers, okay, Kawhi, okay, Paul George, that is not why you guys lost. They lost because they tried to cakewalk through the regular season and through the postseason. Okay, they did not take Dallas serious enough. They did not take Denver serious enough. We were waiting and expecting for this team to turn it up to a level we haven't seen. The Clippers they seem to be waiting for the Clippers, looking at the Clippers seem to be looking at the Lakers, concerned with the Lakers, almost obsessed with that Laker team. They were built to beat the Lakers, as everybody said. But maybe they went a little Laker crazy. They definitely underestimated Dallas, underestimated Denver, and that's why we saw them blow that 3-1 lead. But this team was put together to win this year. We heard Paul George say after the game, I don't think we had, it wasn't championship or bust for this team. That wasn't what we were saying all year. And yes, it was. That's exactly what everybody was saying. This team put together, you get no Warriors. Okay, no Warriors with Kevin Durant. You had no KD and Kyrie. You guys were definitely supposed to win this year. There's a neutral playing ground. So Paul George saying that is a load, in my opinion. With this roster put together and everyone saying you're the favorites, everyone was definitely saying it's championship or bust for the Clippers, and I know you guys were in that franchise as well. So no Warriors, no KD, no Kyrie, neutral playing ground, and you can't even make it to your first conference final. Not the final when everyone is expecting you to get there, but you can't even make it to your first conference final. This team, like I said, tried to cakewalk through the regular season and the postseason, and in my opinion, this may be the second greatest, or if not first biggest, meltdown that we have seen in the NBA. Maybe behind Golden State blowing the 3-1 lead to LeBron, but at least Golden State blew the 3-1 lead to LeBron James and not the Denver Nuggets. Don't want to talk crap on the Nuggets, but again, they blew it to arguably the best player ever in LeBron James. They blew it to the Denver Nuggets. So, yes, again, this could arguably be the second greatest, and not the biggest meltdown upset in NBA history. This team put together had such high championship hopes. Everyone was saying they were going to win, and then they blew a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets. Nick Wright called it. Props to Nick Wright. He said it when no one else did. When it wasn't looking good, he stuck to his pick. So props to Nick Wright at FS1. And now expect people to say LeBron, he should easily win this year's championship. There's no Bucks, there's no Clippers. So expect people to be like, oh, it's done. It's over for LeBron, or it's over for everyone else. LeBron is going to cakewalk to his final championship, and I don't think that is true. Okay, the Nuggets have proven they are for real, and they are not a team you want to underestimate. Miami, Boston, both of those teams are also for real. They are legit. They are deep. Boston is 3 scorers of 20-plus per game. We know how deep Miami is and the clutch and late shots that they can hit. So Miami, Boston, the Nuggets, neither one of those three need to be underestimated. The Nuggets, Miami, Boston, all three are for real. The Clippers choked this one. That's why you guys lost, Kawhi and Paul George. That's why you guys lost. That's the biggest reason I should say you guys lost. Yes, the other stuff I did have to factor in, but the biggest reason you guys lost was because you choked when scoreless in the fourth quarter, had 14 points. You guys combined for 24 points in the biggest game of the year. We'll see if any moves are to come for that Clipper team. Maybe Doc Rivers gets held accountable. Maybe we see Paul George gets moved. We'll see if anyone even wants him after seeing what went on, or how big the market is for him. You're not going to get back what you gave up. But man, I think we will see some moves for that Clipper team. I told you guys I had a lot to say. Sorry, I ended up rambling for near 30 minutes about that. So sorry, guys. But like I said, I had a whole lot to say. Clippers simply blew it on this one. Nothing else to say. They choked the 3-1 lead. One of the biggest meltdowns and upsets in NBA history. Props to the Denver Nuggets for getting it done. I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, I'm going to discuss Denver, the Los Angeles Lakers, that Western Conference final preview. Give you guys a little bit of a preview before Friday. Friday is when we see the first game between this matchup. So coming up next, a preview of that Western Conference final. Don't go anywhere. All right, listen up, sports bettors. This is Casey, here to tell you about my favorite sports book, and it has to be BetUS. Football, basketball, baseball, they are all back, and that means it's time to get down your bets. I only endorse one sports book, and that is BetUS.com. Why? It's because BetUS is the pioneer in online betting with more than 25 years in the business. You guys need a sports book with integrity, longevity, and you guys need to know that you're going to get paid. You need a sports book that offers everything like live betting, MMA, golf, horses, esports, all sorts of entertainment, whatever you guys are into, all kinds of crazy prop bets and futures. You guys can call today at 1-800-MY-BET-US. That's 1-800-MY-BET-US. And they will walk you guys through getting started. It's a really quick and easy process. Nobody in the industry is going to give you guys a bigger bonus than BetUS. Join right now and mention GSMC, and you can get up to 150%. Again, up to 150% bonuses on your first deposit. Nobody can beat that in the business. Okay, I bet at BetUS. You guys should too. You guys can join today. Again, it's betus.com, or you guys can call 1-800-MY-BET-US. Again, 1-800-MY-BET-US. Mention GSMC to get 150% in bonuses on your first deposit. You guys can join today.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Like I said before the break, let's talk about that Western Conference Final, give you guys a preview of what we're going to see in that Western Conference Finals. We now officially know who's going to be there, finally. The Lakers will be facing the Denver Nuggets. The Lakers obviously advanced past the two MVPs in Houston in just 5 games. Had about a week off waiting for the Denver Nuggets to beat the Clippers to find out how that series was going to end. So the Lakers have actually had about a week off waiting for this series to end. And they, like I said, they advanced past Houston, the two MVPs, in only 5 games. And then the Denver Nuggets, I just got done talking about it. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but the Denver Nuggets obviously came back from 3-1 to beat the Los Angeles Clippers. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Lou Will, Montrezl Harrell, Patrick Beverley, Doc Rivers, Marcus Morris. All those guys, right? All those guys were on that roster. All those guys blew that 3-1 lead. This is the third time, actually. I forgot in my last time to bring this up. This is the third time Doc Rivers has actually blown a 3-1 lead. He did it with the Magic, I believe, did it with the Clippers once before, and did it again now. Now he has the worst record ever in Game 7s for coaches, and has now lost, has been come back on, went up 3-2 and 3-1, has lost the series 6 times now. So all of that is going against Doc Rivers. He blew yet again a 3-1 lead. If you need a coach to blow a 3-1 lead, arguably, don't want to be rude here, but the stats prove you want to call Doc Rivers. Again, third time he has blown a 3-1 lead, and I do think he needs to be held accountable for that Clipper roster and for that Clipper organization with all of that talent put together. You got to wonder why it didn't all click. You got to wonder maybe part of that is the coaches, the game plan that came forward. And it's got to partially be because of that. Again, Doc should be held accountable. But Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they simply choked in Game 7. Again, the stats for you. Kawhi, 14 points, 6 of 22, minus 21. Paul George, 10 points, 4 of 16, 2 of 11. From 3-point, I knew it was 2 of 11, not 0 of 11. So Paul George, 2 of 11 from 3-point line. Both guys go scoreless in the fourth quarter. Denver does the impossible, is the first team ever first team in NBA history to come back from 3-1, come back from down 3-1 twice in one postseason. They did it to Utah. They did it to the Los Angeles Clippers, the prohibited favorites. It was an insane series, but ultimately the favorites get sent home packing. 1-2-3 Cancun, right? That is what we saw, in my opinion, in that fourth quarter from that Clipper team. It was 1-2-3 Cancun, and that is what we saw. They mailed it in. Insane series. Again, props to Denver. But enough about the Clippers, right? Enough about them. They choked. One of the biggest upsets in NBA history. Yes, don't want to beat a dead horse here, but again, you want to keep that team accountable. Props to Denver, but how do they match up against the other team in LA? We know they can beat that Clipper team, who definitely underestimated them, but how do they match up against the other team in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Lakers, right? The Lakers won the season series 3-1. So out of the 4 games they played, the Lakers won 3 of the matchups, which may be Denver's lucky number, right? You could argue. Now 2 times Denver has come back from a 3-1 lead. Denver is down 3-1 in the season series. Maybe that's exactly what they need to see to fuel their fire. And Just throwing that out there. It could be Denver's lucky number. They're down 3-1 in the season series. Watch out, LA. Also, Denver in these seeding games, we did see the Lakers beat Denver in these seeding games, 124-121. It was a very close game. I think LeBron had a pretty good individual effort, if I remember correctly. But 124-121, LA beat them in the seeding games, won the regular season series 3-1. But at Los Angeles, the Lakers are not as deep, isn't as deep of a team as Denver, as the Nuggets are. The Denver Nuggets have guys backing up their complementary stars in Jokic and Murray. So after those two guys, they have guys like Paul Millsap, Gary Harris, Grant, right? We know what he's doing on there, and Michael Porter Jr., Torrey Craig. They have multiple guys: Millsap, Harris, Grant, Porter Jr., Craig, coming up, backing up their their 2 stars. So they have a deep roster. All of those complementary pieces. We know how tough they play on a nightly basis. Denver's duo, Murray and Jokic, definitely proved capable of upsets and proved that they are not a duo or a team you want to count out, and they are a duo you want to start taking more seriously and giving more respect. They just took out Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. Okay, Joker and Murray with Millsap, Harris, Trent, Porter again, and led by Mike Malone. Yes, they beat those teams, those players, when they were obviously not favored to do so. So you do not want to count out Denver in this series, but I do think the Lakers, I think and I hope the Lakers will take Denver more serious than the Clippers ever did. Okay, it was obvious after game 1 the Clippers blew them out, and then they lose in game 2. But then so obviously then it shows they didn't necessarily take them seriously in game 2 after going up 3-1. Didn't take them seriously whatsoever. Blow a 16-point lead, a 19-point lead, and get blown out in game 7. Sorry, I can't stop myself from talking about it again. But again, the Lakers need to take Denver more seriously, and I think they will. I'm pretty confident. They've been watching this series. They've been sitting home for a week now. Okay, they've been sitting home so obviously they've been watching this series. They've been scouting. They've been prepared for both teams. For Denver, in the matchup against LA, Jamal Murray needs to take advantage of Los Angeles' perimeter defense. Okay, even though the loss of Avery Bradley hasn't necessarily hurt them too much, that everyone was saying, "Oh, they can't win without Avery Bradley." I didn't say that whatsoever. But either way, them without Avery Bradley hasn't necessarily been that bad for the defense, especially on that perimeter. They just beat a couple of very good, players on the perimeter in CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard, Russell Westbrook, James Harden. So they just beat Eric Gordon. They just beat all of those players who thrive on the perimeter. So I don't think perimeter defense is necessarily the biggest thing holding LA back. Maybe it is. But Murray needs to take advantage on that perimeter, even though that it has looked pretty good out there with the addition of Rondo. But Jokic also must be consistent against Anthony Davis. He was the best player in that Clippers series. Can he be the best player for Denver, being guarded by a guy like Anthony Davis? We know he was being guarded by Montrezl Harrell. Okay, he was being guarded by Kawhi, okay, by JaMychal Green. He was not being guarded by an all-NBA caliber defender like Anthony Davis. So that is a big question I have for Jokic. Can he be consistent while being guarded by Anthony Davis? Can Murray take advantage on that perimeter? Because those two guys are going to have to thrive in those two spots. I am still very confident in my pick of Los Angeles all the way to win not only the Western Conference Finals, but the NBA Finals. So I'm sticking with Los Angeles. They were my preseason pick, my midseason pick, my pre-postseason pick, and now my pick still. I'm sticking with the Lakers, and I think they're going to I think they will beat Denver. I think it does go 6 games. I want to say 5, but I have learned not to bet against the Denver Nuggets in a game 5. So I think it goes 6 games. Don't count out Denver in that 5th game. I think it goes 6 games. LA gets the better of Denver. It's the more experienced team. The Lakers also have 2 of the best players in this series, the 2 best players in this series, in LeBron and Anthony Davis. So that's a big reason why I'm giving the edge to the Lakers. Again, they have the 2 best players in these series. Again, the Lakers need to do what the Clippers couldn't, take that Denver team seriously. I want them to do what the Clippers couldn't as well and close them out in 5. But again, don't bet against Denver in that 5th game. It probably goes 6, maybe 5 if LA can do what Clippers didn't do. It is disappointing, I want to say real quickly. It is disappointing that we will not have the Battle of Los Angeles in that Western Conference Final. I think that was something we were all looking forward to. We were going to see Kawhi Leonard, Paul George play against LeBron James, Anthony Davis on the biggest stage possible possibly for 7 games straight. So that is what we thought we were going to see. A little disappointing we don't get the Battle of LA, but again, it was satisfying to see the Nuggets knock off the Clippers. It was satisfying to see the Clippers blow that 3-1 lead. Denver do the near impossible. So again, even though we don't get the Battle of LA in the Western Conference Final, I'm okay. It was still satisfying to see them blow that 3-1 lead. Western Conference Final starts tomorrow on Friday with the Lakers facing off against the Nuggets. Really looking forward to that. Tonight we have the Miami facing off against Boston in Game 2. Really looking forward to that. I'm going to go and take a quick break. When I come back, I want to discuss those all-NBA teams, first team, second team, and third team. Give you guys my opinion, my reaction for those players, making those teams. All of that is coming up right after the break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everybody. Like I said before the break, I want to discuss those all-NBA teams, give you guys my reaction, my opinion to the players making first, second, and third all-NBA teams, okay? Yes, the 2020 teams have been announced, and I like I have said before, I really love that they're this year, like they have done in the past, but they did get away from it for the past couple of years. But they are announcing the awards throughout the postseason instead of waiting until afterwards. So I love the fact that we are getting these awards announced during the postseason, keeping them still relevant. So that's nice to have. We're still waiting on that biggest award, the MVP, even though we all know the MVP has already been sent home. But yeah, it's great to have these awards being announced in the postseason, and I can say that I pretty much agree with everyone who has made who made the cut for all three teams. I pretty much agree with pretty much everyone that made the list. So let's go ahead and break it down. NBA All-NBA First Team 2020: Luka Doncic, James Harden, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Anthony Davis. Yeah, Luka, Harden, LeBron, Giannis, AD, Anthony Davis. Those are five. Those were the five best players this season. I'm very confident in that. Luka, he gets his first All-NBA team award and his first team in his second season. Okay, in his second season, he's on first team All-NBA. I think he is the sixth player to ever make a All-NBA in his second season. Kevin Durant, LeBron, all these players, but he's the sixth player ever to do so. That is obviously something that is tough to do. Only six players in the history of the league have done so. Props to Luka. He's first team his second season in the league. Very deserving so, near 30 points, near 10 rebounds, nearly 10 assists. So nearly the 30-point triple-double for the second-year star, getting his team to the postseason. Luka, definitely agree with Luka being the point guard on the first team, All-NBA first team. Next up, James Harden. Harden gets his sixth first team achievement or All-NBA achievement. Props to him. Again, I definitely think he was the shooting guard this year. I don't think there was two guards better than Luka and Harden this year. Both guys near 30 points, near triple-double for both of them, especially Luka. So I'm happy with both of these guys making first team, Luka and Harden. LeBron James also, LeBron makes it, but I'm saving LeBron for the end. Anthony Davis, he gets his fourth All-NBA, All-NBA team recognition. Props to him. I think he was the Defensive Player of the Year. He comes to LA and with LeBron, and now they are a factor to win it all. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, both deserving of being on here. Giannis, his second time. He was a unanimous decision. Giannis was to be on the first team. His second time being on the first team All-NBA. Props to him. Definitely deserving of being so. He dominated the regular season, and that is probably why we'll see him being the regular season MVP as well. So, of course, the MVP has to be on the first team. And then LeBron James, also a unanimous selection for first team. He gets the NBA record, 16 All-NBA teams. Okay, it's his 16th time being selected to an All-NBA team, and 13th time for first place. A few times on second. I don't know if he's ever been on third. But 16th time for LeBron, an NBA record. He passes Kareem, Kobe, Tim Duncan. He passes all three of those legendary players who have also had insanely long careers as well as insanely successful careers. He passes all three of them for 16 times being on an All-NBA team. So props to LeBron. I 100% agree with the first team. Okay, 100%. Luka, Harden, LeBron, Giannis, and AD. Yes, that's your first team for 2020, no doubt. Second team. Let's move on to the second team that was voted. Chris Paul, Damian Lillard, Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, and Nikola Jokic. Man, that's a pretty good second team. Okay, it's the second achievement for Jokic, very deserving of so. We just saw him upset those Los Angeles Clippers. He was the best player in that series, if not the best player or best center in the league today. Jokic, very deserving of being on the second team for the second time. Chris Paul makes his 9th All-NBA team, very deserving so as well, showing everyone did see how great a job he did leading that young Oklahoma City team, getting them to that 4th seed when most people didn't even have them making the playoffs. Chris Paul plays great, leads that team, goes 7 games with the Houston Rockets. Chris Paul is the point guard and second team, getting his 9th All-NBA achievement. Lillard wasn't better than Harden to get on first team. I think you could have argued he could be on first team, but I don't think he was better than Harden. He was not better than Luka, so that is why we see Lillard on the second team. He played a great season. We saw him getting his team into that 8th spot, dropping having an insane seeding game performance, so very deserving of being second team. Lillard simply wasn't better than Harden or Luka. Kawhi, same thing as Lillard, wasn't better than the guys in front of him. Kawhi was not better than LeBron, was not better than Giannis. That is why we don't see Kawhi being on this or being on first team ultimately. Similar, like I said, to Lillard, Kawhi was not better than the 2 guys in front of him in LeBron and in Giannis, and Kawhi is not a guard, and LeBron is listed as a forward, so that must be, taken as so. Kawhi gets pushed to the second team. But Kawhi gets pushed to second team, again, because he's not better than those 2 guys. Siakam, very deserving of making his first All-NBA selection. Props to Siakam. He was the driving force for Toronto this year, getting them back to the second seed. Wasn't necessarily the force in the postseason. That definitely needs to work on his half-court game, but Siakam definitely deserving of being his first time on All-NBA second team. Let's go ahead and move on to third team. Ben Simmons, Russell Westbrook, Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum, Rudy Gobert. That's a pretty darn good third team as well. Simmons and Tatum, both of them are for the first time making All-NBA team. Props to both of those guys. I think Simmons was a bit of a I don't think I would have necessarily put him on here. I like a guy like Bradley Beal better. He's the first player, Bradley Beal is, to ever average 30 plus points per game, 6 plus rebounds and assists, and not make an All-NBA team. Bradley Beal is. Maybe Bradley gets above Simmons on here, but Simmons makes it for the first time. We know what he is, an oversized point guard, a defensive player of the year candidate, so he does it on both sides of the floor. Simmons definitely deserving of being here. Tatum as well for the first time, leading the Celtics. Him obviously being the focal point of that team this year. Russell Westbrook slips to the third team because Chris Paul, his leadership in OKC surpasses Westbrook and what he did in Houston. So I think that is correct as well. Chris Paul is on the second team over Westbrook, so I agree with that. Westbrook slips to third team, but still has almost a triple-double season. Westbrook definitely deserving of being on third team. Jimmy Butler, he makes it because of Miami's tremendous improvement, making the playoffs. They upset Milwaukee, as we saw. He is the driving force to getting Miami to being the possible contender that they are now. They had a better regular season record, or they beat the Bucks. In their regular season series. And in large part to do with Jimmy Butler and that Miami Heat culture, but Jimmy definitely deserving of being on third team, and then Gobert definitely deserving of being on third team as well. He was top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year voting, second best player on Utah making the playoffs. Gobert, top 3 center in the league, definitely deserving of being on NBA third team. A couple of snubs, quote snubs possibly. You could say Bradley Beal, Embiid, Bam Adebayo. I think I had him making a third team over Gobert possibly, or maybe over, I'm not quite sure, or maybe over Tatum. But either way, I'm happy with all 3 teams. First team, second team, third team. I'm happy with all 3 of them. LeBron gets his 16th, the most ever in NBA history. Props to LeBron. So all NBA first, second, third team. I agree. I am all cool. not too many disagreements here for me. Let me know what you guys think about that. I'm going to go and take a quick break. When I come back, I'm going to discuss the Orlando bubble very shortly, give you guys a brief recap of what we have seen because it has been crazy down in Orlando, just in case you did forget. So all of that is coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to my final segment of my final podcast of the week. It's Thursday, the final segment. This podcast has flown by. Thank you for sticking around until the very end of the show. But like I said before the break, I'm going to talk about the Orlando bubble and how crazy it really has been. Just in case you guys forgot, I know we have seen some insane performances in that Orlando bubble. The players have all been safe, kept safe, the proper safety precautions, no COVID positive tests since they've gotten there, honestly. So props to the NBA, what they've done so far, keeping all the players safe. The courts look fantastic. What they're doing for social rights and everything going on in the world today is fantastic. So props to the NBA and what they're doing. It's an A+ for me from what we've seen in that Orlando bubble. It's a miracle this season, honestly, was able to be continued. So I'm simply happy that we got basketball back, and I think that it completely exceeded my expectations, A+ for the bubble. But as far as what we've seen in the bubble, because of it being a neutral playing field, maybe it is because of that. But we have seen some insane things. Like I said, T.J. Warren in specific. T.J. Warren looked like an all-NBA player. Okay, based off how he played in the 8 seeding games, he should have made that all-NBA team, right? Dropping 50 multiple times, an insane performance from him, average over 30 points. Insane performance from T.J. Warren. He was dominating for a long time in that Orlando bubble while the Pacers were still, before they got sent home, obviously. Zion and the Pelicans underperform. All the pressure is on them. People say they have the easiest schedule. They're going to make that 8th spot, especially with Zion being healthy in that roster. Then all the pressure gets to them. Zion doesn't necessarily look great, doesn't seem to be in the best shape. And the Pelicans, they underperform, fall short, and don't make the postseason, get sent home before the playoffs started. The Trailblazers, right? The Trailblazers, they lock in. They make the playoffs despite being over 3.5 games, or about 3.5 games behind the Grizzlies and the Pelicans. So despite being behind 3.5 games, they still make the postseason with the odds not being in their favor. The Phoenix Suns then go undefeated. The Phoenix Suns go undefeated. They go 8-0 in the bubble and then fail to make the playoffs. They don't lose a game. They do everything they can, and they still don't make the postseason. I don't necessarily agree with that, okay? But that was insane. Denver, Devin Booker, they looked great in the regular seeding, in the seeding games. Maybe look out for them next year, possibly a piece away from really contending, if they can play like that at least. Miami, we know what the Heat did. They gentlemen swept the Milwaukee Bucks and the MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Clippers, we know what the Clippers did. I talked about it all day. With the Clippers, they blow a 3-1 lead. They go up 3-1 on the Denver Nuggets. They choke the final 3 games of the series, and the Clippers blow a 3-1 lead and go out in the second round. The Denver Nuggets come back from down 3-1 2 times in the postseason for the first time ever. First time ever. Okay, was all of this because of the bubble? I think it is unlikely, but I definitely think the neutral playing field was a big factor. I think no fans in the stands was a big factor. No travel from place to place, arena to arena, city to city was a big factor. Isolation for months, also a big factor. This was built for the mentally tough, not for a softer team. We saw the Clippers go out and proving they aren't a mentally tough team, or as mentally tough as a team like the Denver Nuggets, a team like the Miami Heat, you could say, blowing that 3-1 lead, not maintaining the mental toughness they needed to. So, isolation for months has been a factor on players. So all of that has definitely been a factor in what we have seen. But like I said before, I have been so impressed with the Orlando bubble. It gets an A+ from me. And as it nears its end, okay, we are into the conference final. We have 2 more rounds. We have the conference final and then the NBA final. We don't have a whole lot of basketball left. So while we have it, as it nears its end, I want to urge you guys to start to appreciate it again while we have it. We have the NBA, the NFL. Enjoy them while we have them together. Get your daily dosage of each. Like I like to say, get your NFL, your NBA in while we have them both. While we have them, right? While we have them. We don't know how long we're going to have them, and the next time we may see them again. Again, the Orlando bubble exceeded my expectations. They get an A+. We've seen some insane things in the bubble. TJ Warren looks like an All-NBA player. Zion and the Pelicans underperform. The Suns go undefeated. Clippers choke. Denver plays insanely good when their back is up against the wall. We've seen some insane things. The Lakers are finally seeming to figure things out. Milwaukee gets gentlemen swept in the second round. Yes, this postseason, this bubble has been insane, and it is one of the best postseasons I can remember. A guy who has been following the league for years, a long time now. I can't remember a postseason as entertaining as this one. So again, props to the NBA and what they've done in that bubble. Have definitely exceeded my expectations. A+. As for the GSMC basketball podcast, that is going to be it for me this week, guys. Like I said, this is my final podcast of the week on Thursday. Thank you for the continued support. Go check us out on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook. Leave us a review or comment on whatever platform you're listening on. And as always, thank you for the continued support. Like I said earlier, tonight we have the NBA. We have game 2 of the Eastern Conference Final between Miami and Boston. We got Joe Burrow facing off against Baker Mayfield. We have the NFL, the NBA. Go get your dosage of these. Go get your daily time of each. Again, appreciate it while we have all of these sports at the same time, where it's not going to be like this for too much longer. Appreciate it while we have it. As always, thank you guys for the continued support. I'll see you guys on Monday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.